What if I told you that after 45 years of silence, our most distant space probe just sent back a message that has NASA scientists questioning everything they thought they knew about the universe? What if that message wasn't just data, but something that suggests we might not be alone out there after all? Right now, as you're watching this video, Voyager 1 is floating through the cosmic void, further from Earth than any human-made object has ever traveled. It's been out there since 1977, carrying a golden record with sounds and images from our planet, hoping that someday, somewhere, something might find it and know that we existed. But what happened recently has turned that hope into something far more unsettling. The story begins in 1977 when NASA launched two identical spacecraft into the darkness. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were originally designed for a simple 4-year mission to study Jupiter and Saturn. Nobody expected them to last this long. Nobody expected them to travel this far. And absolutely nobody expected them to send back the kind of data that would make seasoned scientists question their understanding of reality itself. These machines are older than most of the people watching this video. They're running on technology that makes your smartphone look like a supercomputer from the future. We're talking about 69 kilobytes of memory. That's less storage than a single text message on your phone. Their processors are weaker than the calculator app you probably used yesterday. Yet somehow, these ancient machines have been our eyes and ears in the deepest reaches of space for nearly half a century. For decades, Voyager 1 performed exactly as expected. It flew past Jupiter, revealing moons we never knew existed. It sailed by Saturn, showing us the intricate beauty of its rings. It used gravity like a cosmic slingshot, picking up speed from each planet it passed. Every few months, it would phone home with new discoveries, new images, new data about the outer solar system. Engineers gradually shut down non-essential systems to conserve power. Each shutdown was like a small funeral for part of the mission. But still, Voyager 1 kept talking. In 2012, something historic happened. Voyager 1 crossed what scientists call the heliopause. This is supposed to be the boundary where our sun's influence ends and true interstellar space begins. It's like stepping out of your house and into the neighborhood. Everything beyond that point should be different. The magnetic field should change. The particle density should drop. The whole environment should shift dramatically. And some of that did happen, but not in the way anyone expected. When Voyager 1 crossed that boundary, the magnetic field didn't flip like it was supposed to. The particle density increased, yes, but the field's direction remained strangely consistent. That shouldn't have been possible according to every model scientists had built. When Voyager 2 crossed the same boundary years later, it experienced the exact same thing. This completely shattered our understanding of how interstellar space was supposed to work. Scientists tried to explain it away. Maybe their models were wrong. Maybe the boundary was more complex than they thought. Maybe there were factors they hadn't considered. But as they dug deeper into the data, something darker began to emerge. The interstellar medium wasn't behaving randomly. It was dense where it should have been sparse. It was calm where it should have been turbulent. Most disturbing of all, the magnetic patterns looked structured, as if they had been shaped by something intelligent rather than formed by natural cosmic processes. Then in early 2024, something happened that nobody was prepared for. Voyager 1 sent back a transmission that made the entire deep space network freeze. It wasn't just noise or static. It was something else entirely. The data stream included corrupted telemetry, repeated codes, and inexplicable system resets. For weeks, NASA assumed the spacecraft had suffered a critical memory failure. These things happen when you're dealing with technology that's older than the internet. But when backup systems were activated, the same strange transmission continued. Even more bizarrely, it was coming from subsystems that were never programmed to send that kind of data. Engineers started calling it a reflection loop. It was as if Voyager 1 was shouting into the void and hearing its own voice echo back, but warped and changed by something it had never encountered before. One veteran analyst, speaking off the record, described it like shouting into a canyon that shouldn't exist and hearing your own voice warped by someone else's breath. That's a haunting way to describe what might be the most significant discovery in human history. Some feared it was just an internal system failure. Others began considering a much more disturbing possibility. What if Voyager 1 had entered a region of space where its signals were being bent, reflected, or even answered by something else? Scientists immediately began analyzing the corrupted signals, mapping them against cosmic ray surges, plasma wave patterns, and solar wind decay. What they found was absolutely chilling. The interference perfectly aligned with a sudden spike in galactic cosmic ray particles that should have been deflected by our solar system's protective bubble. Instead, these particles surged as if they were being directed by some external force. Even more troubling was an anomaly in the magnetic field itself. There was a twist, a kink, something that absolutely should not exist in the natural structure of space. It was as if Voyager 1 had passed through some kind of membrane, and whatever lay beyond was reacting to its presence. Some scientists suggested it might be a pocket of dense interstellar plasma. Others whispered about non-natural field shaping, theoretical constructs that had previously been reserved for science fiction. But there was one truth that all the research teams agreed upon. The laws of physics that we thought governed space don't seem to hold past the heliopause. Everything we thought we knew about the universe might be fundamentally wrong. And if that's true, then what else might be out there that we don't understand? Voyager's transmissions, once predictable and routine, had become strange and unpredictable. Were they intelligent? Maybe not in the way we understand intelligence. But were they deliberate? That was starting to look disturbingly possible. And in that possibility lies something that keeps scientists awake at night. Because if this isn't just empty space behaving weirdly, then what else might be out there in the darkness? After weeks of desperate attempts to decode the mysterious transmissions, NASA finally released a statement about the Voyager 1 anomaly. But it was heavily redacted and raised more questions than it answered. They confirmed partial signal restoration but refused to elaborate on the repeated data loops or explain the origin of the corrupted telemetry. The public statement was carefully worded to sound routine and technical, but behind closed doors, something very different was happening. The Jet Propulsion Laboratory had already convened a classified task force, pulling in experts from artificial intelligence, signal processing, quantum field theory, and advanced astrophysics. These weren't the usual suspects you'd call for a simple equipment malfunction. This was the kind of team you assemble when you're dealing with something that might fundamentally change everything we know about the universe. One internal source, speaking anonymously, leaked that the mysterious transmission contained non-random oscillation patterns at frequencies that Voyager 1 should not be able to emit. In simple terms, something in deep space was either distorting the signal in ways that defied known physics, or it was piggybacking on Voyager's transmissions and adding its own information to the data stream. The timing made everything even more disturbing. The distortions began just after Voyager passed through a sudden drop in cosmic radiation. This should have had no bearing whatsoever on the spacecraft's internal software systems. Cosmic radiation is just background noise that these machines have been dealing with for decades. But what if something external had temporarily shielded Voyager from that radiation? Or worse, what if something had examined it during that brief moment of cosmic quiet? With the signal mystery still unresolved, theoretical physicists began diving deep into Voyager's trajectory and environmental data. What they discovered was deeply unsettling. The spacecraft's path showed minute but consistent deviations that were impossible to attribute to gravitational pull from any known celestial bodies. These weren't random course corrections or the result of solar wind pressure. They were systematic changes that suggested some external force was influencing Voyager's movement through space. Some researchers postulated dark matter interactions. Others suggested gravitational lensing by an unknown massive object. But one model, buried in a private research paper that was never meant for public release, proposed something far stranger. The presence of a spacetime distortion unlike anything in our current understanding of physics. Not a black hole, not a wormhole, but something entirely new. A boundary in the fundamental structure of the universe itself. This theoretical boundary would be a place where information loops back on itself, where matter responds to forces we don't understand, and where time itself might behave erratically. If this model was correct, it would mean that Voyager 1 hadn't just traveled farther than any human-made object before. It had crossed into a different regime of reality entirely. A cosmic region where our laws of motion, light, and energy begin to break down, and where something else might be operating under a completely different set of rules. What made this discovery even more chilling was what began happening to Voyager 2. Despite being millions of miles apart and following completely different trajectories, both spacecraft began displaying synchronized anomalies. Small changes in signal timing, radiation exposure, and magnetic field direction occurred in parallel, despite their vastly different positions in space. Statistically, this should be impossible. The odds of both crafts encountering identical disturbances in supposedly unrelated regions of space bordered on mathematically impossible. Unless, of course, those regions weren't unrelated at all. Unless there was something massive, something invisible to our instruments, that was encompassing both Voyagers simultaneously and interacting with them in ways we couldn't detect or understand. This sparked renewed speculation that what the Voyagers had reached wasn't just a region of unusual space. It was a perimeter. And if there's a perimeter, logic suggests there must be a center. And if there's something at the center, that something might have just noticed our knock on its door. As more data was processed and analyzed, a subtle but significant shift began to take hold. Not in the numbers themselves, but in the conversations happening between the scientists studying them. Researchers who had once dismissed any possibility of artificial influence began to hesitate when making their conclusions. Engineers who had spent decades maintaining the Voyagers admitted that the behavior they were seeing wasn't mechanical or random. It was responsive, as if the spacecraft were reacting to something in their environment that was reacting back. Slowly, a disturbing consensus began to form in whisper networks and back-channel meetings between research teams. Voyager 1 might have encountered intelligence, but not in the cinematic sense of a spacecraft or a clear message from another civilization. Instead, it might have encountered intelligence expressed through the subtle shaping of the environment itself. Engineering on a scale too vast for human comprehension. The signal reflections, the synchronized distortions between both Voyagers, the magnetic field anomalies, they all suggested intervention or, at the very least, manipulation by something with capabilities far beyond our current understanding. The more scientists looked at the data, the more it seemed like Voyager wasn't just drifting through empty space anymore. It had become part of someone else's experiment. What if something had been waiting patiently for us to reach just far enough into the cosmos to be noticed? What if our arrival at the edge of interstellar space was like ringing a doorbell that had been silent for millions of years? For 45 years, Voyager 1 has been our silent ambassador to the stars. An aging, drifting fragment of human will and curiosity, wrapped in gold and binary code. It carried our sounds, our greetings, and our hope that something out there might one day listen and know that we existed. But we never expected an answer, especially not like this. Voyager hasn't just reached the edge of space as we understood it. It has pierced something older, stranger, and far more intentional than anyone imagined. A region where time twists, where physics trembles, and where signals reflect back with information that shouldn't be there. A place that doesn't behave like the rest of the cosmos. A place that watches back. When Voyager sent that distorted signal, that looping cry across the void, it wasn't a malfunction. It was a response. The kind of response that doesn't need words. The kind that simply says, "We've seen you. We know you're there. And we're paying attention now." Scientists can debate the nature of the anomaly. They can analyze patterns, twist mathematical models, and redact their reports. But they can't change the fundamental truth that Voyager 1 has confirmed. The edge of our solar system may not be an edge at all. It may be a door. And someone or something just cracked it open. The implications are staggering. If there's intelligence out there, intelligence capable of manipulating spacetime on a cosmic scale, then everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe is wrong. We're not alone, and we never were. Something has been out there, waiting and watching, for longer than humans